I'm glad to see you joining me today. Today's episode, we're going to talk about issue statements and how to get started on crafting one if you are having problems with it. The issue is usually the first thing you see on the bar exam. It's the Eye of Iraq, and so a lot of students seem to have a problem crafting the issue statement. They get a little too obsessed over finding the perfect way to create the issue statement. If you are one of those people, then I would recommend that you really make it as simple as possible and completely skip it. Now, this is not for those students who already have it down. You don't even have to think about it. It takes you 2 seconds to write the issue statement. It's not for you. Go ahead and do what you do. And that goes for any tips at all throughout your entire bar exam study. Don't let anybody try to change the way that you are studying if you are already doing things that's working for you. So just keep that in mind throughout your entire study process. Really for anything, not just for the bar exam, but for your study on anything at all. So keep that in mind. But for those of you who are finding it very difficult to craft a perfect statement, or you are spending a minute writing your issue statement. Like I said, your issue statement should take like 2 seconds. Don't waste your time on the issue statement. So for those of you who are doing that, go ahead and instead of crafting a full, complete issue statement, just use a heading, which is the topic of the discussion of the answer you're going to give. And generally that just means pulling that issue from the call of the question. Now, that's the art of issue spotting, which is a completely different video that I would be happy to make. But it's there's a whole art to issue spotting that doesn't just come from the call of the question. Sometimes it comes from the fact pattern, so it's a little bit more hidden, but again, that's for a different time. Here, the issue statement, if you were having problem crafting the issue statement, just go ahead and let's say it's a criminal law question. Go ahead and just tag it as involuntary manslaughter, murder, that big general topic that you're going to be discussing in your answer once you have spotted that issue. So let's take, for example, the July 2012 criminal law procedure question, mainly criminal law. But this, I'll try to link it in the description if you don't have it. It is on the NCBE website from past exams. But the call of the question for that particular year is question number 1. Could a jury properly find that Adam is guilty of involuntary manslaughter? Explain. The way that some students craft the issue statement, sometimes what happens is students tend to have a tendency to narrow the issue statement way too narrow, making it, trying to make it unique, or just they're honing in on a very specific issue that they think is the main issue. For example, students may have an issue statement for question number 1. The issue statement they may have is the issue is whether Adam has the intent to commit murder, or something like the issue is whether or not Adam has the intent to commit involuntary manslaughter. They mainly focus on the intent element, which is correct. It's one of the issues, but that's really a sub issue. So when you craft your issue statement like that, then you may have you may run into the problem of only discussing the mens rea or the intent of the crime, missing out the other elements of the crime, because really the big issue that they are wanting you to address is involuntary manslaughter, which means you need to talk about all elements of involuntary manslaughter, not just the intent element. So you will see in the analysis then that they give for the in the point sheet, they give for answer number 1, they were really looking for 3 sub-issues, 3 sub-points. The big issue they're looking for is the involuntary manslaughter. And in the sub-point B is where they address that mens rea, the intent, the recklessness, the gross negligence. There were 2 other elements that needed to be addressed, which is the unreasonable risk of harm and or the unreasonable risk of death, or the serious bodily injury. What they really wanted to address are 2 other elements of the involuntary manslaughter, which include that unreasonable risk of death or that serious bodily injury. And they also wanted you to, very important and commonly neglected by students who answer murder questions or really any criminal law questions at all, is the causation element. A lot of students tend to just forget to address that because they're so focused on the intent element. So the issue statement really for that answer should be, the issue is whether or not Adam is guilty of involuntary manslaughter. And then you explain it. So if you craft it that way, you can see that you are really just pulling the issue statement from the call of the question. Or some students, to be more complete, would say the issue is whether or not a jury could properly find Adam guilty of involuntary manslaughter, and that would be more complete. But again, it would be sufficient to just say the issue is whether or not Adam is guilty of involuntary manslaughter. For those of you that still have problems doing that, I would recommend that you really just use taglines for your answers and not worry about the issue statement. Have the tagline, for example, in this particular case, involuntary manslaughter, like maybe go 1 involuntary manslaughter, bold it, underline it, whatever is most comfortable, most convenient for you, and then get right into the rule statement. Then you will have the I in Iraq be part of the tagline heading, and then you start your answer out with the R of Iraq. And for those of you who are not familiar with Iraq or is kind of struggling with Iraq, never really got a full hang of it, that again is another video. But in general, Iraq is really the most, in general, Iraq is probably the most straightforward way for you to craft your bar exam answer. There are other ways, but for those who are needing some structure and some guidance to just make a really straightforward exam answer, Iraq is probably the best way to do it. But again, it's a little bit too much to cover for this episode. But if you would like to see a video on that, go ahead and make a comment and then hit the subscribe button and the notification so that I know which videos you want to have so that I know which videos you would like to see that will be helpful to you, because the purpose of this channel is really to help you through this process if you're studying for the bar exam, whether or not you are a first-time test taker or a repeater, or you're just getting started as a 1L and want to get a jump start, or understand what topics you'll be needing to know for the bar exam, or tips for studying throughout law school. That's gonna all be covered in this channel, but of course the videos that I will make will depend on the demand and suggestions or requests. So feel free to leave comments and I'll get to them as quickly as possible. Yeah, so we are gonna get through this together. The point of this channel is my hope is to help you get through this process so that you can move on with your life and conquer. My hope is that I can help you muddle through this process, which is a rite of passage for all of us attorneys, but hopefully some of these tips and tricks will help you get through this process and conquer the bar exam so that you can move on with your life and conquer the rest of the other parts of your life. My hope is to help you. My hope is to my hope is to help you through the process. So make sure you leave comments, and hopefully these tips will help you work through the process, so that you can conquer the bar exam, so you can move on with your life and go on and conquer the rest of other parts of your life. Hopefully these tips can help you work through the hopefully these tips will help you work through the hopefully these tips will help you work through the hopefully these tips will help you hopefully the tips on this channel will help you get through the process of studying for the bar exam, whether or not you are a first-time taker or a repeater, or if you're starting out as a 1L and want to get a head start on what's on the bar exam, or listen a little bit about the different topics that are covered on the bar exam and learn, because these are topics that are going to be on your 1L exam.